I loved my husband. I thought our life was perfect, until his best friend showed me what passion truly felt like. One touch, one look, and everything I believed about love shattered. I crossed a line I could never uncross, and now I'm living with a secret that could destroy everything. What I felt with him was bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than anything I've ever known. And sometimes, desire comes at a cost you're never ready to pay. My name is Victoria Smith. I'm 31 years old, and for a long time, I believed I had everything a woman was supposed to want. A steady marriage, a safe home, and a husband who never failed to provide. Lawrence and I had been together since college, building what looked from the outside like the perfect life. He was stable, thoughtful, and practical. The kind of man who believed in routines and safety nets, in planning everything months ahead. At first, I told myself that was exactly what I needed: stability, predictability, a life without chaos. After all, isn't that what so many women long for? A man they can count on, a roof over their head, and a future that doesn't feel uncertain. But somewhere along the way, the spark disappeared. What once felt exciting slowly dulled into routine. Our conversations became shorter, our laughter less frequent, our intimacy mechanical. Something checked off like a chore rather than an expression of passion. I convinced myself it was normal. That marriage was never meant to feel like fire forever. That this was the natural rhythm of love, comfort replacing passion. But at night, when the house was quiet and Lawrence's steady breathing filled the room, I would lie awake with a hollowness I couldn't explain. I wanted more. Not more things, not more money, but more of something. I wanted to feel alive, to feel my heart race, to feel like a woman desired, not just a wife maintained. I buried those thoughts, told myself they were selfish. But deep down, a part of me was waiting for something, or someone, to remind me of the woman I once was, and that reminder came in the form of Leo, Lawrence's best friend. Leo had always been in our lives. He and Lawrence went back years, their bond unshakable, their friendship obvious. He wasn't just Lawrence's best friend. He was practically family. He showed up at barbecues, birthdays, even helped us move into our first home. Where Lawrence was cautious, Leo was bold. Where Lawrence calculated, Leo leapt. He worked in construction, his hands rough and calloused, his skin kissed by the sun. There was an energy about him, a confidence that seemed to draw people in effortlessly. I never saw him that way at first. He was just Leo, the loyal friend who teased Lawrence, made everyone laugh, and always had a story to tell. But something changed the night Lawrence had to stay late at the office. Leo stopped by to help with a loose cabinet door in the kitchen. It was something small, but the way he moved, focused, strong, sure of himself, caught my attention. When he finished, he leaned back against the counter, wiped his hands, and smiled at me in a way that made my chest tighten. We started talking, not just about the cabinet, but about life. It was easy with him. Easier than it had been with Lawrence in years. Leo listened, really listened, and when he laughed at my jokes, it wasn't out of politeness. It was genuine. I brushed it off, told myself I was just lonely that night, but as weeks passed, I found myself looking forward to the moments he'd stop by. He always had a reason, a light bulb, a leaky faucet, a shelf to fix. But behind those reasons, I sensed something else. The truth was, I liked the way he looked at me. Like I wasn't just Lawrence's wife, but my own woman. The thought scared me, yet thrilled me. That night when he left, I stood at the door longer than I should have, watching him walk away. And something in me whispered, this is dangerous. Dangerous or not, the spark was there. And once you notice a spark, you can't pretend it doesn't exist. It began with the small things. The way his hand brushed mine when I handed him a glass of water. The way his eyes lingered a second too long when we laughed. The way his voice lowered when it was just the two of us. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was misreading the signals. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. Leo looked at me differently than Lawrence ever did. He saw me, not just as a wife, not as someone tied to responsibilities and routines, but as a woman. One afternoon, Lawrence mentioned Leo's name casually, and my stomach twisted with guilt. I shouldn't feel this way about his best friend. It was betrayal even to think it. But as soon as I saw Leo again, guilt dissolved into desire. One evening, Lawrence was away on another late shift. Leo came over to fix a faucet that had been dripping endlessly. I stood in the kitchen watching as he leaned under the sink, his shoulders broad, his hands moving with skill. When he stood up, our laughter filled the room over some silly joke. Then silence, thick, heavy, charged. He looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. My hands trembled as I handed him a towel, and when his fingers brushed mine, the spark ignited into fire. For a second, the world went quiet. Just his eyes, my pounding heart, and the weight of a decision I wasn't ready to face. I pulled back, forced a smile, pretended nothing happened. But that night, lying in bed next to Lawrence, all I could think about was Leo's touch and the way it made me feel alive again. The line was crossed on a night that seemed ordinary at first. Lawrence had been called away on a last-minute work trip, leaving me alone in the house. Leo offered to stop by and check in, making sure everything was fine. I should have said no. I should have drawn the line, but I didn't. He arrived with his easy smile and warm presence. We shared wine, laughed about silly memories, and for a moment, it felt harmless. But deep down, I knew exactly where this was heading. When I leaned forward to set my glass down, his hand brushed mine again, lingering just long enough to make my pulse race. I looked up, and his eyes locked onto mine with a fire I couldn't deny. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was him. All I know is that suddenly, his lips were on mine, and the world fell away. Fear, exhilaration, desire, they all collided inside me. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was betraying the man who had given me his trust, his love, his life. But in Leo's arms, I felt a version of myself I thought had died years ago. Alive, wanted, free. When it was over, I sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. He touched my shoulder gently, whispering that we didn't have to regret it. But I already knew the truth. We had opened a door that could never be closed again. I promised myself it was a mistake, that it wouldn't happen again. But even as I whispered those words, a part of me was already craving more. After that night, everything changed. I felt like I was living two separate lives, one with Lawrence, calm and predictable, and another with Leo, intense and dangerously alive. The guilt gnawed at me constantly, but the thrill of seeing him, talking to him, touching him, it was impossible to resist. We found excuses, little reasons for him to stop by when Lawrence was busy, fixing a leaky faucet, adjusting a light, helping with minor household chores, all harmless, or so we told ourselves. But behind each innocent task, there was a magnetic pull we couldn't fight. I loved Lawrence, I truly did. But love felt safe, desire felt electric, and every stolen glance with Leo, every fleeting touch, reminded me of what I had been missing for so long. The paradox of loving one man but craving another tore me apart from the inside. At night, I lay in bed with Lawrence, pretending to sleep while my mind replayed every stolen moment with Leo. I hated myself, yet I couldn't stop. I tried to justify it, telling myself that Lawrence deserved a wife who was happy, and that in Leo's presence, I finally felt alive again. But deep down, I knew rationalization wouldn't protect me from the consequences of my actions. Every day became a delicate dance of secrecy. Messages deleted, sudden excuses for leaving the house, pretending nothing had changed. And yet, in Leo's eyes, I saw the same unspoken craving that mirrored my own. We were addicted to a fire that could destroy everything, and neither of us wanted to let it die. Living a double life was thrilling, but terrifying. Every time Lawrence mentioned Leo, my stomach twisted with anxiety. Every time the phone buzzed, I panicked, fearing a message that might reveal the truth. There were moments when Lawrence almost noticed. A lingering glance between Leo and me, a hesitation in my voice, or a sudden flush that I couldn't hide. I caught myself imagining what would happen if Lawrence discovered everything, and the fear was paralyzing. But the danger only made the connection with Leo feel more intense. Every stolen moment became more precious, more charged. Every touch, every whispered word carried the weight of forbidden desire. And yet the tension wore on me. I began losing myself in the lies, the careful avoidance, the constant calculation of what I could say and do without raising suspicion. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop. The thrill was addictive, but so was the guilt. As months passed, I began to feel the true cost of my choices. Leo's presence was intoxicating, but the consequences of discovery loomed over me like a storm cloud. I realized I was risking the love and trust of the man who had built a life with me, the man who truly cared for me. Each time I came home to Lawrence's smile, I felt the pang of betrayal sharper than ever. I loved him, but I had already crossed a line. The more I indulged my desire for Leo, the heavier the weight of guilt became. I could no longer separate pleasure from consequence. Each encounter was a mixture of exhilaration and dread. I began to notice the toll it took on my emotions, on my sleep, on the quiet moments that once brought comfort. I was walking a tightrope over a chasm of my own making, and I knew I could fall at any moment. The inevitable happened one evening. Lawrence came home early from work, far sooner than expected. I panicked, frozen with fear, as Leo had stopped by for a routine fix. My heart hammered in my chest, and I realized how close I had come to disaster. Lawrence didn't notice anything outwardly, but I knew I could not live like this forever. The walls I had built around my secret were starting to crack, and every day, the risk of exposure grew. The life I had carefully maintained with Lawrence teetered on the edge of collapse, and the danger wasn't just theoretical anymore, it was real. After a particularly tense encounter with Lawrence almost discovering us, I knew I had to make a choice. The fire I had sought with Leo was no longer worth the devastation it could bring. I ended things with him, despite the ache in my heart. The decision left a scar, but it also brought clarity. I realized that passion, no matter how intense, cannot replace the foundation of trust and loyalty in a marriage. I had found the excitement I craved, but I had lost part of myself in the process. In the aftermath, I am left with a bittersweet mixture of regret and reflection. I have chosen to stay with Lawrence, to rebuild the life we started together. The passion with Leo is gone, replaced with memories that will haunt me forever. I have learned that desire can be blinding, and that sometimes the most dangerous fire is the one we choose to play with. But I have also learned about myself, about the parts of me that needed attention, adventure, and recognition. I am wiser now, scarred yet stronger, and while I carry the weight of my choices, I also carry the hope of a future rebuilt with honesty, reflection, and cautious love. The fire I once chased taught me more about myself than I ever imagined, and now I move forward carrying both regret and the quiet beginnings of healing.
Sometimes the choices we make define us more than the love we lose. Victoria chose desire, but learned that passion without trust can leave scars that last a lifetime. What would you have done if you were in her shoes? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of secrets, regrets, and the truths we hide behind closed doors.